What's up, everybody? This is Todd. Today I'm recording a replay cast where we're going to look at what happened in a game between Moon and MichaeL. And I'm going to be joined by Starshaped to bring out the Night Elf expertise. And this one, what's going on, Starshaped?
Yo, thank you for having me. It's going to be a lot of fun here watching. Moon especially is one of the absolute best players in these types of these long macro games. He makes a lot of great decisions. And we know that MichaeL really likes to do these tier 1 and tier 2 expansions against Night Elf these days. So it's going to be a really cool game to watch.
Yeah, I was very impressed. I think this was his account on which he had, like, I don't know, something ridiculous, like 39-0 or something when he got to Grandmaster. And I think that was the game that got him to Grandmaster as well. So it's pretty nice to have the legend himself on Celebrity Champions. I know of this matchup that a lot of people are talking about it. Undead against Night Elf, and a lot of Night Elves, they have a lot of trouble, in particular against Gargoyles, so there's like this weird dynamic. So maybe you can enlighten us, like, usually what is this matchup like on this map?
Yeah, so I mean, the thing about Gargoyles is, well, first of all, on this map, there are 2 fountains, and the fountains are protected by a level 6 dragon. So it kind of reminds me of Secret Valley, if you remember that map. Same principle here, where Gargoyles can very easily just snipe those dragons to get 2 really good items very quickly in the game and get a level 3 Death Knight. So generally any map that has a fountain is going to be good for Gargoyles. But these days we also see a lot of expansions into Gargoyles, and that kind of switches, it kind of flips the whole matchup on its head, because back in the day, if your opponent went Gargoyles, it's usually a 1-based Gargoyle style. So it was very almost binary, like, okay, he's going Gargoyles, I'll go 50 Food Dryads, then I'll blank, and then I'll get 2 Ancients of Wind, and as soon as he breaks 50, I'll break 50 with Hippos, and that was kind of the game. But with this expansion style, they kind of explode into Gargoyles. You know, they'll do a tier 2 expansion, or a tier 1 expansion, they'll get like 4 or 5 crypts, and they'll just explode into Gargoyles. So you can't really apply that same thinking anymore. Plus, there's the attack air priority on Gargoyles, which makes it a lot easier for undeads to actually win against Hippogriffs. So it's a very hard matchup in that, with those things in consideration.
What do you think about the Entangle opener here to get the Acolyte? And also, I guess he denied one of the crypts here because he's not level 2.
I don't think you actually don't get level 2 if you could just kill the Acolyte there.
Oh, really?
Getting Entangle, it's a very interesting choice. I think it's almost like this reaction where you're like, okay, I can do it, so I'll kill the Acolyte. Because that Acolyte can be very annoying. It can scout your expansion. It can target wisps. Like, it can just be annoying. And if you're going to rush down anyway, it can make sense to go for that Entangle and get the kill. But it's probably very uncommon. Most people will get the Treants. Even if you want to harass, like if you're afraid of an expansion, getting Treants is usually just better than Entangling Roots. Because you can just summon Treants and harass their expansion. But it's not a huge deal. It's fine either way. And, you know, when you do pick Entangle first, you're kind of, it's relaxing in a sense that you don't have to get level 2. Because, you know, if you ever have a game where you like pick Treants and then you don't get level 2 because they're harassing you, it feels really bad. So this is like you're guaranteed to have that Roots, and you'll get the Treants when you get them.
What's the prioritization like here? It feels like he was threatening the main base to keep MichaeL around, but now, like, he didn't go for any ghouls, so I guess, like, on Blight, it's kind of hard to kill one of them. There's going to be Coil on time as well, usually. Going for the Acolyte, maybe also a bit unrealistic. And then now he's just kind of trying to stay on him, right? To make sure he doesn't creep his DK to level 3. Like, what are you thinking at this stage, usually, if you're the Night Elf?
Yeah, so you're definitely, like, the early game scouting, being aggressive like this is a great way to also scout. So he makes sure that he sees the tech, and that says a lot. And that means there's not going to be a tier 1 expansion. And it means that putting down that Tree of Life that Moon did makes a lot of sense. You know, if they do a tier 1 expansion, a lot of the times, oh, nice around here, actually. So that's one of the uses of Entangling Roots here. And that's why a lot of times we see staff being bought these days. A very quick staff on the Death Knight. But like I said, if you see that tech, it makes a lot of sense to expand, which is what Moon did instantly when he saw that. Just put down that Tree of Life. Whereas if the Undead would have stayed tier 1 and would have gone for tier 1 expansion, maybe Moon would rather do a tier 1 all-in. So it's kind of like scouting. The aggression is kind of like scouting for free. And he keeps up the scouting because he sees the double crypt. He sees, okay, it's going to be Gargoyles, it's Concealed Hill, it's MichaeL, so it's going to be a tier 2 expansion. That's the only thing I've ever seen him do recently, is a tier 2 expansion with the Gargoyle style. So it's really interesting to see how Moon kind of deals with this.
It's super dangerous to have archers this far out, so I like that he saw the amount of ghouls, he's like, okay, hell no. He just ran out of there, and then he used the entangle to kind of lure the undead army away from these archers, where they might have been in danger otherwise.
Yeah, that's a great point. I remember I talked to Foggy with this, because I watched a game of Foggy where he just kept all his archers at home. He just kept them in his base. I'm like, why did you do that? And he said, well, you know, if you bring them out there, they can just get surrounded and die. They're not mobile. They don't do that much anyway. So it's better to keep them back. We actually see the Alchemist second here for Moon, which is kind of an old school choice. These days, we're seeing a lot more Demon Hunter second or Panda second against Gargoyles. But the Alchemist is always solid. The Acid Bomb is great in any situation. If it's ghouls and gargoyles, I'd say in some ways it's even better than Breath of Fire, because you can't really counter it with heal scrolls like you can Breath of Fire. Like the negative armor is just always going to be there.
I like that he brought the Wisp that he had down there as well, in case there was an Expo. Now he brought it. He was like, okay, if he fights, he's going to have skeletons. I'll have Acid Bomb and Entangle, and now MichaeL realized there was no way he could fight this against Acid Bomb, so he just went home. And one thing that I've noticed that a lot of elves do when they go for this style is that usually they get Nature's Blessing when they're tier 2, but now Moon is rushing tier 3 as he's getting the tree ready to creep that expansion here.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about watching the Moon game, it's very hard to analyze a lot of times because he does so many different things. I agree with you, most of the times he will get a quick Nature's Blessing with this style, especially on this map. The creeps are so powerful at the expansion that if you don't have Nature's Blessing, it's actually very difficult. Like, you can just get creep jacked and lose that tree and you lose the game. And like the way he positions it right now, that's pretty scary. But he knows that MichaeL's down there. He knows that MichaeL's expanding. So the only downside here is that, you know, that tree's just kind of waiting. So it kind of sucks to be aggressive here because you want to set up that expansion. But,
yeah. And earlier, by the way, when he walked by, he spotted the second crypt. So he knew there was going to be gargoyles the whole time. Maybe that's what affected his alchemist decision. Like, having Acid Bomb here will make it easier to fight. Now he ends up being forced to Town Portal out, but not before killing a bunch of units. And look where he portals, to the Expo that's ready to creep.
That's really smart. But this is where you actually really want to have Nature's Blessing, because that tree can take a lot of damage. But he knows he's safe. Michael's far away. And, you know, if you're undead in this situation, the one advantage that Night Elf does have in this type of game is that most of the time the undead is going to be very, very defensive right now. He wants to make sure that that gold mine does not get cancelled. He's usually going to stick around. But I'm pretty sure, like, right now, MichaeL is probably just creeping the dragons. So that's what I would assume if I was the Night Elf player. Like, okay, he's got the gargoyles already. He's going to get the level 6 dragons, get a good item. You can get Vampiric Aura, you can get those types of items. It's just really, really powerful in this stage of the game.
And he found a crystal ball. How happy is he with it?
Yeah, that's about the worst you can get. I mean, you can kill Shades with it if we ever see Shades, but yeah, that's not what you want. But he also rushed, like, it's very, very meta, this, I would say, because, you know, Moon just rushed tier 3 with an expansion with nothing else, because he was kind of banking on the fact that this was going to be a tier 2 expansion into kind of a passive play from the undead. So it is, I would say, a risk. It's a bit of a greed here to go straight tier 3 like this, because if it wasn't this passive, then you could definitely punish what Moon was doing here.
So I guess the priority here is always going to be to get this little upgrade here, marksmanship. And usually the +1, I guess, will come in at some point. That's the whole point of getting the Huntress Soul. He's already adding a bottom third. Do you think that's the best that you can go for here?
It's I think if you've already picked the Alchemist second, I think bottom third makes a lot of sense. I also like Demon third, honestly, because, like, sometimes the other heroes can get out of hand. Like, even if you have 100 food archers, you can still, like, just lose to Coil Nova. Like we're seeing here from, like, very, very patient usage, just sniping units, backing off. So if you don't have any mana burn the entire game, that can get way out of hand later on. But the combination of Keeper, Alchemist, Totem makes a lot of sense, especially if you're going to mass archers, which is what looks like Moon's going for. Just heavily upgraded archers. On paper, it makes a lot of sense against gargoyles. Like, it's the hard counter on paper. They do extra damage. They don't take that much damage from the gargoyles. Of the night, yeah, I like it.
Yeah, he goes True Shot first. Of course, we can add an orb here, I'm sure. Start working with the stuff. He's keeping the crystal ball for some reason. So yeah, maybe he's thinking about Shades down the line, or wants to make sure he has some decent scouting option. And by now you anticipate Undead has already done this.
Yeah.
Probably can start working on this too.
Yeah, so if you're doing this, if you're playing as Undead in this type of game, it feels like a really big win for the Night Elf if you can get one of the fountains, or just the middle spot, because, like, the Undead has better creeping potential, and it looks like that's what Moon's just going for, that middle spot. And very good usage of the crystal ball. He knows this is very safe. gets the Warsong Battle Drums. Absolute nuts, I would say here. Just more damage for these archers. And he'll probably end up selling, like he should probably sell the Crystal Ball once he gets the level 2 on the Potom, because we're going to see Owl Scout for sure. Because that Potom is going to hold an orb. Oh, nice. Saves Archer with a staff there. And that's one of the, another advantage of the Potom here is that you can actually hold an orb. You can have double orb on those heroes, which is one of the most powerful tools for Night Elf, I think, is like those late game orb stacks.
Research finished.
Where do you want to break upkeep here in this kind of game? Like when you have, like, let's say 1k gold-ish?
It's so hard to say. I mean, this is when scouting is so important as well. In theory, as long as your opponent's not breaking and you're doing this kind of mass archer style, you don't have to break at all, like until they break. But if you maybe want to push the expansion, if you want to take another expansion, you might want to break for that. But otherwise, you can get into these kind of silly situations where you're both just banking at 50 because nobody wants to break. And there's no immediate threat. Like I said, gargoyles, they don't scare archers at all in a straight up fight. There's going to be a lot of harassment probably. There's going to be a lot of annoying things for Moon to deal with. So not breaking is a way to deal with that. Because imagine if he goes up to like 55 or 60 food right now and he's getting harassed constantly, has to buy wisps. He will slowly but surely lose his economic advantage. And MichaeL might just be sitting there at 50 all this time, going for like an abomination switch or something, you know. So you definitely want to be patient here.
Yeah. Do you like this, the double law transition?
I'm not sure. I think what Moon is reacting to is the fact that there are so few gargoyles. If MichaeL would have committed to gargoyles, he would have seen a lot more. He would have lost more wisps. There would be better upgrades on them. And he sees now with the Owl Scout there's actually fiends. So Moon realizes there's a tech switch, and that's very, very important because it's so easy to just kind of see those first couple of gargs and think, okay, it's mass gargs. And then you go like mass archers, even hippogriffs. So imagine if you made a bunch of hippogriffs now and all of a sudden there's fiends.
You think that if he had seen a lot of gargs, like let's say he scanned here and then he saw like, I don't know, 10 gargs, he would just, what would he do? He would just stay on archers?
I think he would stay on archers, maybe get even hippogriffs, or maybe get one lore for like one giant or one bear for war and stuff. But I think he would have stayed on archers for sure.
Yeah.
If he would have kept seeing those gargoyles. So a lot of it's about scouting.
I'm surprised he hasn't made any upgrade for the archers. It feels like even the +1 would be useful, but he prioritized ultra vision before the end of the day, so that he would have extra vision here to not get caught, I guess, with the immobile archers. Then he queued Wellspring, I guess also very important, and then now he's going for upgrades for the lower units.
Yeah, it's always something I struggle with in my games, like what do I want to prioritize, because everything comes from the same building. And I would say, like, if you're not under any immediate threat, you don't have to get that Wellspring super fast. Especially if you're going to get into bears, you can have rejuve anyway. So a lot of times I'll skip that for a while and focus on my attack upgrades and armor upgrades. But we do see like the first attack here, there's destroyers, there's triple hero, and we see that Crypt Lord, like MichaeL's really expecting this mass archer style. He wants to have that impale, he wants to have mass AoE. And I don't know, does he have master bears right now?
Yeah, he just got it. It was queued. Yeah. I like that he's standing back. You know, like this army doesn't do the most damage to a tree, so you always have some time before you have to engage. And he's already working with the double orb. Okay, so he had the orb on the alchemist earlier. I like that he transferred that on onto the priestess, because this guy's supposed to be healing.
Yeah, he's not going to be attacking. That's a great point.
But he went to acid bomb too, though, somehow, instead of healing spray too.
Interesting choice. Yeah, I think it's because of this bear switch. Like he wants just more damage output. So like if you're going to have a lot of bears, it makes more sense because like healing spray doesn't do that much for bears. But I mean, if it would have been pure archers, I guarantee you it would have been level 2 heal spray. And really nice usage of the lures there. Like the fact that MichaeL couldn't attack was because of those 2 lures that Moon was kind of hiding behind. And like you said, the tree's not going to die anytime soon. So very, very good positioning here. Very patient by Moon.
Yeah, usually the goal here is to get to 80 yourself and then get ready to defend.
Yeah.
Is this getting nuked? You should be on 2 staff, I guess, by now. Yeah, he's one of them. On the alchemist, so he still has the one from the keeper.
Doesn't use it though, so the first bear does go down. And this is where it gets very, very tricky because... Oh, we'll see if there's... Yeah, ooh, nice impale. There's going to be a straight up fight here first. Very good focus fire from MichaeL on to the bears. Just wants to focus them down as quickly as possible. But the archers, I mean, they're putting in work here. And like you mentioned, there are no upgrades on them for some reason. But there are a lot of archers, and they're probably the main source of damage right now, I'd say.
I stand ready.
It seems like he really wanted to prioritize the upgrades on bears here. Even queuing is prioritizing the armor.
Warriors have engaged the enemy.
Yeah, and he discovers very well-timed scout here. He sees that the expansion has been taken, and that's one of the most interesting points about this map, I think, is that there's that center expansion that you have to fight over. And you know, if you're undead and you get a couple towers up there, it's very, very hard for Night Elf to actually attack into it. But if you do have bears and archers, I mean, that's like the best possible army.
Yeah. You know, people always ask me, like, how should I micro in fights? Like, what should I prioritize? I feel like very often the answer is just attack move. Attack move and then see what's happening. Like, these guys at the front, maybe you entangle him. Use the healing spray correctly, of course. But before that, use acid bomb first, because healing spray is channeling, so you're not going to be able to use something else at the same time. But yeah, you don't need to do anything fancy here. It's not like you go into the fight, you're like, I'm going to go for the lich. No, like, attack whatever's at the front. Just try to have some good surface area and position.
Yeah. Especially this type of game is like, I'd say 90% positioning. Everything's going to come down to positioning, whether or not the nukes can land properly, whether or not the archers are exposed or not. And then look at the damage output. This is crazy. Acid bomb is huge here. Like, if we didn't have acid bomb, this would be a different game. Like, the armor debuff is actually huge.
Yeah, that was a sick timing too, because the towers were not up yet. If those guys had been up and would be tanking a lot of the damage, we might be looking at a very different game. And Moon was super patient. Instead of chasing the army, which a lot of people would have done, he stood there and he's like, I'm going to take out those towers and force you to come back now into the fight.
Yeah, and MichaeL's definitely trying to force a TP here, but there's a greater interval. We should probably see that first. Like, you don't want a TP. Oh, wow, the Keeper dies with an interval and a TP. But yeah, Moon did not want to leave that. If you TP out at that situation, you're probably going to lose the game, because those towers will get to reposition. So very, very important that he didn't leave. But losing the Keeper was a big mistake there. He did have a big invul.
Yeah, he probably didn't use it. Maybe he was trying to staff last second or use it last second, but...
Yeah, that's not, sometimes that happens. Like, you want to min-max as much as possible, and you just mess up.
But he did so well in the fight that he still had a lot of gold, because he barely lost anything, so then he just rebought. I know he's targeting the gold mine instead of fighting the army in the first place. So he was playing that TP all along, it feels like. That's interesting, because like the undead heroes didn't have that much mana, but we were still fighting on Blight, and there was like a lot of skeletons, I guess, and the statues in the back.
Yeah, and especially the Night Elf heroes didn't have any mana either. And a lot of weak bears he already staffed back. Like, I think it's just like a convenience almost. You just want to gather everything up again, all the staff units, use Rejuve, use Moonwalls, because it's going to be a lot quicker for Night Elf than Undead. So you can go down there again really quick.
I stand ready.
I guess it's tricky to deal with the parts where there is rejuvenation and war, because then you would have to go for destroyers, but there's a lot of units that attack air. And those are like very hard to reach for the undead at the back line, you know, with healing spray being there as well.
It's a very interesting, like, this is like a unit mix that I'm experimenting a lot with, or have been recently, because I feel like this is like the late game powerhouse for Night Elf. Bears and archers, like, they're two very, very efficient units. So if you just combine them and you have an expansion, you can get a lot of worth out of them. Because like you'll notice, Moon didn't make a single dryad in this army. I think it's very interesting.
There's not really much point in getting an orb on the alchemist, right?
No. I mean, he's going to be busy with heal spray.
He already attacks air as well, if need be.
Yeah. But if he had Chemical Rage, I think definitely you want to put an orb on him. But since he doesn't, it's probably better to just... If you get really rich, you can do it, but it's a bit of a luxury.
Let's see, Bear's got 2-3 upgrades, so they're pretty damn strong. He gets Nature's Blessing now. Usually, yeah, when your main's starting to run out and you might be thinking about moving it, also a good time to get that. He makes sure that he has... I'm trying to check his control groups real quick. So it seems like he has everything on 1, as you would expect, and then the archers on their own on 2.
Yeah.
So if he wants to target the destroyers, he'll just click on 2. Like if one of them is at the front, then he'll target the destroyer. And if the destroyers move back, then he can immediately retarget something else so that the archers don't run in like crazy.
But I think you made a good point there, where like this is like an attack move army.
Yeah.
I think Night Elf in general is a very attack move friendly. For Undead, it's a bit harder. You have the orb, you want to focus fire things. But this army for Moon, it's attack move, and then use heroes, use items, think about positioning.
You see that, by the way, like, it's interesting. He could have used Acid Bomb at the front, but he might hit only the A-Bomb, or like, you know, not much. Whereas now, he used the Acid Bomb in the center to try and hit multiple units. So he hits just 2 of the Fiends. I think the goal was to try and get like 3, 4, 5, so that there's also the damage over time
Our warriors have
being
It
applied.
also makes MichaeL back off, so you can get better positioning for Moon here.
Yeah, here this is the part where you plan your staffs as well as possible. Oh my god.
Oof, yeah, that's a risky move right there.
our Zeri grove is being defended.
But just look at the damage here, it's so crazy. The Autumn putting in work, level 2 aura, bears with great upgrades, the archers, I mean, this is such a DPS army from the Night Elf. The Fiends, they don't really cut it here. Like, the Fiends don't really seem like the optimal unit in this type of game, in my opinion. Especially if you already have the expansion, you have the capabilities to make a better army than this. This is like a one base army, but powered by 2 bases, you know what I mean?
You know, it's like, why does he keep summoning Treants? But that's the thing. There is only 2 destroyers. These guys are already working overtime. And they're like, what do I dispel? Do I dispel all of the not scroll the beast, war, I guess, on the units? Or do I go for the Treants? So they cannot get everything. So that's the point, I guess, of still summoning Treants here.
Yeah, and you'll notice what he often does is like he'll use Treants, and then it takes 2 Devourers from the destroyer, so that means he can use Entangle, because there won't be any dispo on cooldown. So that's a good trick you can use as Night Elf, like wait for them to actually eat your Treants and then Entangle something. But eventually, I mean, the thing about the Undead right now is he has statues. The statues are, I think, by far the most powerful, like, stabilizing unit in the game. Like, if you're both
just say it like it is, man.
Ready to brew.
The most broken imba unit.
Yeah. But I mean, you know what I mean? Like, if you're both attacking into each other for like 5 minutes, the Undead is just not going to run out of anything. But eventually, all the other races will. That's when you TP out. And, you know, Night Elf has these broken Wellspring moves, of course. But it means he has to back off and use them and then go attack again. So it's a very strategical TP for Moon. Not overstaying his welcome. I like it, even though he didn't actually kill the expansion.
Has collapsed.
The towers are mostly gone, so you can just go for it again.
He knows he has 8 Moon Wells to replenish and then re-attack.
Exactly.
But he's mixing in hunts, by the way.
Did he do that now? That has to be a misclick. Or his style.
It's the 300 IQ move if you don't understand Starshaped.
Yeah.
This guy's meditating over there. I was wondering, like, why is he keeping this on this guy? But I guess his mana pool is, like, super important because the fights last a very long time.
Yeah. And the Keeper mana doesn't matter. The spells don't matter at this point in the game. So intelligence on the Keeper is just extra damage.
So Moon finally mined out the main base, and I think he identifies now. He needs to break the center location or he's lost the game. If he does one more attack like this where he doesn't break the Undead, I think he's lost.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
He's setting up on the right side and he's sending a lot of Wisps here on the left side. And he's even sending in some Treants here to maybe have MichaeL look at the wrong time, ideally, over there.
Yeah. Very, very smart. This is Moon in a nutshell. Very, very positional.
Well, except this guy.
Except
the enemy.
That's very unfortunate that he's kind of forgot about the Alchemist. I wonder how that even happened. Like, did you remove him from the group?
Yeah, probably. Since they see Wisps coming from behind, and that's gonna force a Nova, but now the rest, once the Nova is gone, the next ones come in and they're gonna drain almost all the mana.
More and more. Yeah, this is crazy. This almost reminds me of the Orc matchup, you know, where you pull the Wisps to make sure you win the fight. That's pretty much what we're seeing here. Like, all the mana's gone, even the statue's gone. And the Alchemist is finally showing up here as full mana, so he's not going to run out of anything. He's going to throw the Aspon, he's going to throw the Heal Spray. Level 2 Owl Scout. Probably the most useless level up right now, but still.
And I think like a lot of elves would have been very tempted to move the main base here to the center. But the thing is, whatever he staffs, and he has double staff, needs to come back here because there is all of these Moonwells here. So I like that he waited until he moved the tree here.
That's a great one. That's like one of the big weaknesses of losing the main is that you lose access to those Moonwells. It's still a close fight though, isn't it? Like if you're checking the supplies, Moon's at 61, MichaeL's at 71, so it's still very, very even. Surprisingly, I would say, after all those Wisp detonates. There's a lot of chain warp destroyers though, and that's the thing. Just like you said, I mean, he has to take his fight, so it's a great time for MichaeL to actually do this, because even if you morph a bunch of destroyers, Moon's not going to leave. He has to fight. So that's what we're seeing here. There's a ton of value from these mana destroyers eating up the spares.
And now he's on top of the Acolytes.
So important to actually make sure that the economy doesn't get out of hand for MichaeL here. And the archers, I mean, the archers are really going to carry it at this point, because destroyers are garbage against archers. They don't really do anything.
And now he can move the tree, I think. It's like the checkmate move after he's taking the center.
He could probably even move his ancients. Oh, he's actually finally adding in some triads.
What for, you think? For frost armor, I guess? And any skeletons?
Not really sure, to be honest. I mean, just a little bit of catch. Like, if MichaeL now starts to play hit and run again,
yeah,
it can be nice to have a couple triads to maybe catch some stuff. That's the only thing I can think of.
Using the fountain nicely on the right side. I guess it would be very easy here to lose patience and then just overchase and stuff, but now, you know, he gets engaged into, he loses a couple of units, he's like, okay, well, that's supposed to happen, so yeah, I'll just heal.
Research finished.
And even if this tree gets jumped on top of, he has down bubble here anyway.
Exactly, and that's like the big downside to this entire game. And like from the elf perspective, you have a lot less mobility compared to the undead. Your archers are very, very slow. He has unholy aura. He's got Frost Nova. Like, it's very easy to get caught out and just lose the game to bad positioning. So you have to be very, very patient, very careful.
2-3 bears. And still Archer is going to end the game with 0-0, looks like. And now the pressure is going to be on MichaeL. Like, I'm sure he knows this is going to be taken by Moon. And he's the one who has to do something about it now, because otherwise there's going to be too much of an economy.
Exactly. It's like a reverse situation, but the only difference is MichaeL can't detonate his acolytes, so it's going to be a lot easier for Moon to hold this than MichaeL. And these destroyers are out of mana now, so they're really, really bad units. They're not doing anything. And we're not going to see any entangles or stuff like that.
I guess he needs some crazy nuke. Like a mistake from Moon as well. If Moon staffs now, he staffs here, so it's kind of dangerous in itself.
And it's so easy to forget that as Nidal. Oh, he actually loses the Alchemist, but Dana has Invul. And the Triple has Invul, and he has a coil there. He can actually... Oh, no, he maybe could have saved the Cryptor.
Yeah, he wasn't cooled down because he coiled the Alchemist.
Yeah. But yeah, look, like Moon uses his staff even though it doesn't really do anything. Easy to forget his Nidal, but it actually does go to the main.
It feels like with the DK being so low, then it's so much harder here to fight from there. You would almost have to unbind it and put it on hold position behind, and yeah, he ends up losing that. And I'm guessing there was not much economy here left. Yeah, 2400, 2400 as well for the elf. They took the exploit at the exact same time, but yeah, this one's gonna start mining soon. Supposedly, he actually took a while to saturate that.
Yeah.
But Keeper gets 6, and usually that's tranquility, and at the end of the game.
It's a really cool, like, I'm curious what would have happened if we saw giants instead of bears. That's one thing I thought about, is like, how good were the bears in this game actually? I'm not really sure. Like, maybe a couple bears, but I think if you added some giants here,
yeah,
it would have been a lot even, because like bears have this to just through Frost Nova Impale. It's so easy to just get value from that. But if you have a couple of giants in there, it's much, much harder.
Yeah, so you had some questions for Moon. Do you want to go over them?
Yeah, sure.
That I did send him, and he replied to very nicely.
I have to just stop watching, right? There we go.
Yeah.
Did you send them to me? There we go. Yeah, so when we watched this game, we had some questions. I had some questions. The first one was about the Entangle. So we saw him picking Entangle first, and I was kind of curious if he did that just to kill the Acolyte, because it won't get you level 2. And then you're kind of forced into, like, it kind of reveals your hand to the undead, where like, okay, he's not going to keep creeping because he doesn't have treants, he's going to rush me. And a lot of the times, Nidalf wants to prioritize getting level 3 keeper. Like, in most situations, most matchups, if you can get a quick level 3 keeper, that's huge for the Nidalf. It's like one of the best level 3 heroes in the early game. But Moon said that, yeah, he did kill the Acolyte just to kind of stop the scouting. And that is a big deal, because he did put down the Tree of Life very quickly afterwards. But he did also say that he prefers to get Keeper 3. So I'm not sure. Like, I think it was a spur of the moment. Like, okay, I'll get the Entangle. I'll stop the scouting. But most of the times, in most games, he probably will just creep.
Yeah,
I think that's what most people would do. But it's Moon. I mean, Moon just, he does so many variations on everything he does. The second question we had here was whether or not he considered Demon Hunter second or Demon Hunter third. And this is a bit of an old game at this point. So, I mean, now even more so, it's a lot more meta to just get the Demon second. Like, Keeper Demon is super common against Undead. And Moon said he prefers a Demon Hunter in order to neutralize the Undead heroes. He thinks Panda is a nice choice against Gargoyles. But in this game, he went Alchemist. So I'm not really sure. Like, I think if you're going to go mass archers like he did this game, it's almost like a given that you need an Alchemist because you need to have the healing spray or you're just going to die to nukes.
Yeah.
So I think that's mostly why. Like, it's not so much about what MichaeL was doing. It's more that what Moon was doing. Like, if you're going to go mass archers, you have to get that heal spray at some point. But yeah, definitely these days we see a lot more Demon Second. And especially after this patch, when they buff the Panda, we're probably going to see a lot more Panda Second. The third question here was, why did you focus so much on bears and archers? And why only upgrade bears? So I was wondering if he was worried about abominations countering giants, because the thing about giants is, like, in a low economy game, they're incredibly powerful. But if you're both kind of sitting on 2 bases and macroing up like crazy, it's very possible that the undead just goes like mass abominations, and those giants just don't do that much anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, is he afraid of that abomination switch? Is that why he's just going straight to bears? And he said, well, he selected his units according to the opponent's units, and I only upgraded the bears because he thought that the archers it was enough to just have a war on the archers. So we didn't want to waste any resources on upgrading the archers, and he'd rather get the armor and attack on the bears. And that's kind of what we saw with the Owl Scout. He saw the switch very early. He saw the fiends, and I think that's what he saw. That's what mainly made him go into the bears. Like, okay, he's going fiends. He's going kind of like a normal composition. He's kind of doing the fake arcs. So he went into the bears. But I'm still surprised he didn't get any giants, especially in a big macro game like that. And my last question, which is a bit of a personal question perhaps, because I'm very, very uncomfortable in this kind of 2-base against 2-base situation in Night Elf against Undead. So I asked him, are you comfortable? Are you comfortable playing 2-base Night Elf against 2-base Undead? And he said he thinks it's very difficult to play 2-base against Undead. And if it's possible, he doesn't want to go there. If he can, he'll make sure that it doesn't go to that point.
Yeah, but in this game, because of the low level keeper, I guess, because there wasn't much creeping being done, I guess he felt like he couldn't do that. Like, he got trance kind of late, you open Entangle. I guess in the game where you rush Keeper level 3, then it's much easier, because then you might be more inclined to go Trance level 2. Whereas, like, now, when he finally got level 3, he went Entangle level 2. So I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I've watched some recent replays. Actually, it was Moon against MichaeL again. I think it was a best of 3 where he won 2-0. And you can't stop the expansion. Like, there's no stopping it. That's what we have to kind of realize in this meta. The expansion will go up because there's going to be a lot of ghouls and skeletons and stuff, and Nova and Coil. So, like, when the Night Elf has just a bunch of archers, like you said when we watched the game, it was a smart thing to keep them back because the archers just die so quickly. So what Moon did in the games that I saw afterwards was, like you said, level 2 treants to just deny the gold mine. So it was just the keeper with a staff, and he's just going there to deny the gold mine. And then he kept the archers in the main and added hippogriffs to get hippogriff riders. And he used hippogriff riders to kill the gold mine. Like, he just wanted to delay the expansion as much as possible. And I think that's what you can hope for as Night Elf. You can delay it, but you're not going to stop it.
Yeah. All right. Everything sounds good to me. Yeah. Let's do some shout outs then. Where can people follow you? I know that sometimes you record some videos on your YouTube. You've made like some tutorial stuff. So what's your Twitch? What's your YouTube? Where do you want people to follow you? And thank you again for joining me as well.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. So my Twitch and my YouTube are the same. It's Starshaped STHLM. That's Stockholm for short. Starshaped STHLM. I haven't actually been that active on my YouTube these past couple of weeks, but I try to be very active. I try to upload at least 3 times a week, different commentaries, strategical videos, discussions, stuff like that. Especially now with the patch updates and stuff, I'm trying to be more active. So definitely check out my YouTube if you enjoy my casting. And thank you very much.
Thank you.